I'm Julie Zenner along with Dennis Anderson, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
St. Louis County has big plans to improve roads and bridges over the next 2 years, fueled partly by a new half-cent sales tax. We'll talk about the county's $119 million investment.
With the St. Lawrence Seaway officially opening for the season this week, we'll look back at the history of this major project that forever changed the Twin Ports.
And we'll have the latest business headlines and find out what was making news 25 years ago this week.
So don't go away. Almanac North is next. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching and a very good Friday to you, Denny.
Well, thank you. We've had a mix of weather this past week. Some warmth, lots of wind.
That's right. The seasons are changing.
They are.
And we're almost ready.
April.
We're almost ready for the next season, of course,
so.
Which is road construction.
Yeah.
So why don't you introduce our first guest?
Thank you very much, Julie, and welcome everyone. St. Louis County has allocated $119 million during the next 2 years to improve more than 420 miles of roads and replace 47 deficient bridges. The projects will be a boost to the construction industry, and funding will come from a combination of state aid, federal highway funds, and a new county transportation sales tax. Officials say by doing the work now, the county will save a large amount of money in the long run. Joining us now is Keith Nelson, a member of the St. Louis County Board from Virginia, and Kevin Gray is the St. Louis County Administrator. Welcome to both of you for being here. Thank you very kindly. Now, there's a lot of money being put on the table for county roads. How in the world did you put together such a package?
Well, I think it's important to recognize our partners at the federal and state level, where we do get some of our funding year in and year out. But the main component here is the people of St. Louis County have helped us along the way bring about this half-cent sales tax. That half-cent sales tax is going to be generating significant funds. We're bonding for $40 million that we will pay back over the next 15 years. But the important piece is that that's going to put impact out there immediately, which is how we're achieving that $119 million.
Kevin, some people around the region wanted the state to determine first how much they were going to kick in before the county decided on going for this measure. That hasn't happened yet with the state, has it?
No, it sure has not, and it's not very clear. In fact, I would say less than certain that there'll be a good outcome regarding an investment in transportation funding at the state level. There's a lot of dialogue. There's been a lot of dialogue over the past couple of decades with only one boost in the state gas tax in that time. But for us, the other part of it is that we're focused on county roads and beefing up our county system that is the largest in the state, 3,000 square miles. 600 bridges. It was interesting to note that MnDOT announced their construction program this season. 1,600 miles of roads and 600 bridges serving 8 or 9 counties in the Northeast. So I think that that just shows how big and how important our network of roads is to this region.
Mm-hmm. Talk about the condition of the roads in the county and why this sizable investment is needed.
I think as we start talking about the condition of roads, the viewers out there already know the conditions of those roads. And I think it's important to recognize that, you know, we're talking about 500 plus miles of our roads that are in poor driving condition. They're rated by MnDOT on an annual basis, and they are in poor driving condition. The key to our efforts is that we are going to be doing the worst first. So we're really focusing in on those roads that have those poor driving conditions.
Mm-hmm. Now, we do have a map that shows kind of the extent of those projects that you plan over the next couple of years, and so we're going to put that up and maybe start down in the Duluth metropolitan area and work your way up and kind of tell us what some of the bigger projects are that we can expect.
I'm going to let Kevin start with some of the stuff down in the southern part, and as I get up into my district, I'll certainly pipe in with some of the things that we're really excited about.
Fair enough.
Well, I think a real critical east-west corridor is Arlington Road, from Lake Superior College all the way up to Arrowhead Road. So that'll be a significant investment for us. In fact, that's where we had a bit of a kickoff event this week, and lots of horns honking, and I think they're ready for fresh roads. We're going to complete Martin Road from Rice Lake Road all the way over to Midway Road, another critical corridor in this area. And of course, the money, we talked about the $119 million is our 2-year program,
Right.
This 2015 construction season and next year as well. So we'll be using some of our sales tax dollars and bond dollars to support the 4th Street project as well. And all these projects, there'll be a mix of federal, state, and transportation sales tax dollars.
As you can see by looking at the map, our engineers nearly ran out of red and purple ink because you look at those corridors. Highway 16, such an important corridor for central St. Louis County. We're doing that all the way from County Road 5 all the way to the Lake County line. That's a distance that goes through almost 7 townships. At 6 miles each, the 42 miles of townships, and we're touching each and every one of those.
That'll all be tackled this summer?
That is going to be tackled this summer on Highway 16. I do want people to recognize, though, that even with this amount of money that we're putting out there, that they're putting out there, the investment our taxpayers are putting into these projects, this is not the end-all be-all. We still have a great deal of work to do. These next 2 years are the jump start. But we're only going to use this as a platform. We're going to keep climbing that ladder and fixing all of the roads, that transportation sales tax being the key component to accomplish that as we move forward.
There's been some bad news now from the Iron Range. So with mining layoffs and other industry troubles on the range, will the sales tax increase raise less monies than maybe was projected, and that could put the road project into trouble? Are people going to be spending less money?
The balance of the sales tax is what's really key to its success. And because the sales tax affords our visitors an opportunity too, to help pay for some of those roads that they're traversing while they're up here enjoying northeastern Minnesota. I think, from my standpoint, I think if fuel prices stay at the level they're currently at, I think we're going to enjoy a tremendous tourism season up here. That's going to help greatly. Certainly, the layoffs in the mining industry are going to impact spendable income as we go up onto the Iron Range. My hope is that with some help from our friends at the state and federal level, that those impacts will be short-lived.
Now, Kevin, you ticked off a number of Duluth area projects, and when the sales tax was being discussed, there were some people who were concerned that perhaps folks in the Duluth metro area would pay the bulk of this tax and not get their fair share of projects. So as you were looking at the things that needed to be done, did that weigh into the formula in terms of prioritizing what would get done with these sales tax dollars?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that we look at the entire county. We're one county when we look at projects, and we certainly are cognizant of how to use the transportation sales tax to leverage our projects everywhere. No, in the sense that we have a number of projects and funding challenges and flows that ebb and flow from north to south all the time. So in this particular case, this year we're using quite a bit of dollars on Arlington and on Martin Road and other roads. We look forward to 4th Street, I mentioned before. But the other thing that's really significant is we've done almost $30 million of projects in the last 2 years in the Duluth area. So that's one of those ebbs and flows. Where the project needs are driven will vary with time. So we think that, that Duluth residents make great use of the entire county. We have a great network of visiting from north to south and south to north. So we think this will pay dividends for everybody.
Will the worst of the county bridges be tackled this summer?
Actually, the bridge projects that we have in front of us are truly a 2-year package, because much of the work that needs to be performed on these bridges, because of environmental concerns, we're not able to get out on a lot of these bridge projects until July 1st. which really constrains our ability to be able to deliver these projects in a one-season time frame. So as we start at that July 1st time frame and try and complete as many as we can this fall, our hope is to be right back out there again next spring to finish up all of those projects. We have a number of deficient bridges. Of note, I mean, we have bridges in this county that were originally built in 1938. They have served the residents of this county well. Those are going to be some of the first bridges we're replacing.
So we mentioned road reconstruction and bridges. What are some of the other areas that these dollars will help the county cover over the next 2 years?
Well, I think you're going to see not only new reconstruction or mills and overlays and reclaims and overlays, but you're also going to see some what we call preventive maintenance work to extend the life of the roads. So some of the roads that have been worked on recently will be worked on again in 16 and in the following years very shortly to harden them, to extend their life. It's one of those investments that typically falls by the wayside. So we're committed to really reducing the costs of our roads long term by making these timely fixes.
Kevin, you bring up a good point. I'm curious. How long does a typical road repair last? I mean, we have severe weather up here. Are we talking 15 years, 20 years, or not that long?
No, I think if it depends on the type of fix. If we do a major reconstruction, we're looking closer to 15 to 20 years. If it's an overlay, 12 to 15 years. But what we're hoping to do with these preventive maintenance fixes is to come back, work on the road, and in the next year or two, work on it again to extend that life. So a 12 to 15 year fix becomes a 20 to 25 year fix. And of course, that dramatically lowers the costs over the time of the road life to our taxpayers.
So there's all this work that's going to be done. Is this going to be creating jobs for local contractors, or is it primarily done by the county workers themselves?
The vast majority of this work on the construction side, nearly all of this work will be done by the contracting community. St. Louis County, I'm proud to say, is one of the very few counties out there that has project labor agreements in place. And those project labor agreements mean that our local tradesmen and women, those individuals that are highly trained, highly specialized in road construction, safety of road construction, that they are going to be performing these jobs. We've worked very diligently with our contracting community to make certain that the number of projects that we're putting out there are I'll use the word doable, okay? But there's something that we can actually accomplish using those local labor force folks. And these dollars, we're talking thousands of jobs, and thousands of jobs really at a time when we're seeing some of those layoffs in our steel industry, or at least slowdowns that really could stem that tide for quite some time, and perhaps some of those workers working alongside of our tradesmen and women, because many of those individuals that work in our mines, they were tradesmen and women before they went to the mine, and a lot of them hold cards in both unions. So hopefully this is going to put a lot of dollars out there, and believe me, the business community is going to feel it as well.
We were talking a little bit before the show started about the potential impact of these slowdowns on county taxes, the taconite taxes. What's being discussed right now with that?
Well, I think, at least from a county standpoint, as the chair of the Finance and Budget Committee, myself, our board chair, Commissioner Stauber, Administrator Gray, and our auditor, Don Dicklich, we've had a number of discussions about what impact this may have on the county overall, as far as in dollars coming in. One of the beauties with the taconite tax is that it is a 3-year average. So it does tend to lessen some of the impact in this first year. But we really have to be cognizant of it, and we have to look out, over the course of these next 2-3 years, because the impact may not be felt immediately, but it might be felt over the next 2 or 3 years.
Viewers might want to know, is there any chance at all that any of the half-cent increase could be channeled toward other projects that have nothing to do with roads and bridges?
Not on a bet.
Okay,
Was
board,
that simple enough?
The county board cannot take that money and use it for other projects.
The state statute that afforded us the opportunity to put this half-cent sales tax into place, and I want to make this extremely clear, that statute delineates that we put these dollars, every dollar, to roads and bridges and infrastructure that involves that road and bridge component that we have out there in St. Louis County.
I think you've made it clear.
Not on a bet.
All right.
All right, on that
Keith
note,
Nelson, Commissioner, thank you. Kevin Gray, Administrator, thank you both.
Thank you.
I think
Nice
he's
job as
chomping at the
always.
bit to make that.
Now, let's dig into our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
The idea sounds simple enough, just lay down the track and roll the train. But actually doing the job can be hard work. First you have to lift the track into position, then line it up, then bolt it together.
Takes a while, slow going, hard work kind of.
What's the hardest part about it?
Cornering, takes 2 inches to pull it, kind of binds on it. Tries to straighten the track out. Goes pretty good though. Grease it up. She slides.
After that, you hook up 2 big trucks with big winches and pull. If you're lucky, the wheels on the engine will turn. Usually very reluctantly, and not without a couple of broken cables. This was cable number 6. After 8 days of work, the train has come 4 blocks, and the Mountain Iron residents who've been watching its progress are anxious to see it in its new home. They say the train is a vital link with the town's past.
For the old people, it's a memory. And for the younger generation, it shows what things used to be. That train was in that mine over there. And it used to haul the iron ore in the cars.
In Mountain Iron with photographer George Marinsel, John Schottel, KDLH News.
The first ships of the season began moving through the locks of the St. Lawrence Seaway Thursday, beginning their transit to the Atlantic Ocean. And that means it won't be long before the first saltwater ships of the season reach the Twin Ports. Administered by the U.S. and Canadian Seaway authorities, we take the Seaway for granted today, but its creation in the late 1950s was a monumental project, not only for the millions spent on its construction, but also for the political capital needed to push through the idea. As the Seaway's 57th season begins this week, it's a good time to look back at its historic beginnings. Tonight we bring you an excerpt from WDSE's documentary Lost 50s, narrated by Pamela Fish.
It was always the Great Lake that drew the voyagers, traders, and settlers. But there were those who hoped to see the pull of the inland sea become even greater. They wanted world commerce to reach the shores of the Great Lakes and ultimately make its way to the most inner port of Duluth Superior. For decades, efforts were underway to link our inland port to the Atlantic Ocean, 2,342 miles away. It would prove to be not only a major engineering, technological, and financial feat, but a political challenge as well.
And I supported and spoke for it in 1954 in the Senate. And there was a good many people in the New England states and the eastern coast who felt that the development of the Seaway would mean that we would be bypassed. I don't think in the long run that that's going to happen.
When Duluth newsman Glenn Maxim interviewed then-Senator John Kennedy, he acknowledged that business interests near the nation's capital had been opposed to stretching the waterway this far west. But forces at work in Canada and intense lobbying by Great Lakes officials saw Congress and the President finally approve legislation to make it happen. A major observance was planned for the official arrival of the first vessel to make its way from the open sea.
Well, of course, they'd been hoping for it for decades, and it finally opened in 1959. And the first ocean-going ships came through that spring, and they had a big, big celebration here.
I remember the day the first ship came in the huge spray of water over the entrance, the canal, and all of the people standing on the ships, of course, got soaked. But it was quite a day. The Raymond de Larranaga, it was a British ship from Barry's Marks.
It's a vivid memory for a young Jerry Lawson who envisioned his future livelihood out on the water.
I used to ride my bike down to Canal Park, and it wasn't called Canal Park then, but down to the aerial bridge and watch the ships come in and out.
When the Ramon de Larranaga came in, he was among a crowd of nearly 4,000 people who cheered its arrival. The festivities would go on well into the summer. President Eisenhower wrote to congratulate Duluth citizens, saying Duluth is known for fortifying the American economy and strengthening its defense. And Eisenhower would meet that summer with the Queen of England for official binational opening ceremonies. Elizabeth II was touring Canada on the Royal Yacht Britannia as it made its way through the inland locks and channels of the Seaway. In the weeks that followed, dozens of salties made their way to the Twin Ports to do business at the new international seaport. Lawson says those were fiercely competitive times due to the huge economic impact.
It was almost like the Wild Wild West modernized. When a ship would come in a large group of ship chandlers, at that time there was probably half a dozen different companies that provided groceries and provisions to the ships. And at the bottom of the gangway, it was not unusual for fistfights to break out onto who was going to get up the gangway first and get to the captain first and get the order.
There were new and exotic cargoes making their way through the Twin Ports, and mammoth equipment like the port's 2 gantry cranes were installed.
Those all put up at the same time as the warehouses, and those were some of the last cranes built by Clyde Iron right here in Duluth.
Spin-off businesses on the waterfront were thriving, and the Port of Duluth Superior, the St. Lawrence Seaway, and places beyond were all poised for a very bright future.
I think in the long run, the Seaway will prove to be the same kind of a national asset as the Panama Canal was. And though in the short range it might cause some difficulties, in the long range I think it's going to lift the prosperity of the entire country.
Let's turn now to the week's top business news from Business North. The boom or bust iron range is sliding back into a low cycle. United States Steel will temporarily idle a portion of its Mintac plant in Mountain Iron beginning June 1st, laying off about 700 workers. The company blamed excess inventory, a nationwide reduction of steel demand, and the illegal dumping of foreign steel. U.S. Steel said in March that its Keetac plant will be temporarily idled beginning May 13th, affecting 412 workers. In February, Magnetation announced it would indefinitely idle its Keewatin plant, affecting about 40 workers.
Enbridge Energy and the Wisconsin Towns Association are providing money to help Douglas County develop a watershed plan for the Lake Superior Basin. Douglas County's plan will be one of the first ever to be developed, according to Douglas County conservationist Christine Ostern. It will guide future land conservation strategies and wetland management and give more local input into wetland regulatory decisions. The plan will also make wetland mitigation easier and more cost-effective for developers and help the county access outside assistance to meet its conservation needs.
This week, the U.S. Forest Service said northern long-eared bats are threatened but not endangered. The designation came in response to white nose syndrome, a fungal disease that has sharply reduced the bats' population. The lesser designation means foresters and landowners will face less stringent regulation. Nonetheless, the action does nothing to eliminate the disease, according to Wayne Brandt, Executive Vice President of 2 Minnesota Forest Industry Trade Associations. Brandt criticized the new federal designation, saying the bats are not threatened by forest management activities in Minnesota or anywhere else.
Also this week, the Minnesota Department of Transportation released a list of 303 state highway projects about to get underway. MnDOT officials stressed that planning for future years shows less money will be available for road work at current funding levels. Lawmakers in the Minnesota House and Senate, along with Governor Dayton, have called for increased highway funding for future years, but so far no agreement has been reached on how to pay for that increase. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
Our time this week is nearly gone, so call now if you have a comment. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message, or send an email to almanacnorth@wdse.org. You can also visit the WDSE website for news and information about the station, updates on our broadcast schedule, or to sign up as a member. And Denny, I'd like to wish you and all of our viewers a very happy Easter, a happy Passover weekend.
Very good. Same to you. Hope you enjoy it with family this weekend. And all of you, of course.
I thought you were trying to shake my hand
Oh,
there. It's
well.
For Denny and the crew here at Almanac North,
Thank you,
I'm
Julie.
Joy Center. We'll see you next week.